Gonzalo Garcia is the MVP of the Club World Cup for Real Madrid so far. Real Madrid 1, Juventus 0. Real Madrid put in a solid display versus Juventus today. The team came out with the same 3-5-2 formation as the previous match, and they faced another 3-5-2 formation in Juventus. Today's game is a prime example of how 3-5-2 can be either an attacking-oriented formation or a very defensive formation. Real Madrid came out with the same structure of having Fran Garcia and Trent Alexander-Arnold push forward with a high press, having Tchouaméni push forward as well, adding more numbers in that midfield, while Juventus came out with a 3-5-2 that was very defensive. The left back and right back pushing down, helping absorb pressure, and getting ready for that counterattack with Kolo Muani up top. I mentioned in the preview, there is really no surprises with the starting 11. Xabi Alonso came out with the exact same starting 11 as the previous match. With Kylian Mbappé returning to training, there was some discussions about whether he will be starting this match or if it was too soon. Xabi Alonso decided that it was too soon for Kylian Mbappé to start the match, and he opted for Gonzalo Garcia. And that was the correct decision, as Gonzalo Garcia scored the winner for today's match in the 54th minute with a beautiful header. All in all, Real Madrid dominated this match. There weren't too many clear-cut chances that the team missed or even generated, but we did get a total of 21 shots today, 11 shots being on target, resulting in a lot of key saves from Juventus goalkeeper. Now, one of the significant improvements that I've seen this season compared to last season is the fact that these players are actually shooting from long range. You know, previously we only had Fede Valverde, who was consistently shooting those long range bangers, some of those going in, some of those not. But now we have players like Tchouaméni incorporating himself into the attack. We have players like Jude Bellingham. We even have players like Arda Güler who are trying these shots from outside of the box. And this is absolutely key, especially when you're playing against a team with such a defensive display like Juventus did today, with those 5 defenders and 2 defensive mids. They only played with 1 striker up top, completely waiting on that counter-attacking opportunity. Was pretty stale. I mean, Gonzalo Garcia himself struggled to get involved. Around the 40th minute, he really only had 4 touches on the ball. It was a very stale display. It was a very stale game. The second half picked up a lot more. That's where we saw this Real Madrid squad pushing forward a little bit more, taking those shots from outside the box. And a key movement that we did see, Xabi Alonso shifted during the halftime break, was moving Tchouaméni higher up the pitch and playing in that midfield role. I mean, we saw it all day. Juventus's approach was to counterattack with a very defensive display. They only had that 1 striker. This meant that Real Madrid's structure could change. We could add Tchouaméni forward onto that midfield role, that defensive midfield role, to help progress the ball, to help add numbers into the midfield. We kept Fran Garcia and Trent Alexander-Arnold out wide, pushing forward. We essentially played with Dean Huijsen and Rudiger as the 2 defenders, again, playing in that very high pitch, playing in that very high position, adding pressure onto this Juventus team. And to me, this was a key movement and will be a key movement, especially going into La Liga. There's so many teams that come out with a very similar defensive display to Juventus, that 5-4-1. And Xabi Alonso has shown that we have the ability to adapt 1, tactical approach during the match. We have the players to try those long-range shots that open up opportunities. But 3, we also have the players in Arda Güler and Trent Alexander-Arnold and in Gonzalo Garcia to play those crosses and have that aerial ability in the box, which turned out to be the deciding factor in today's match. A couple key notes that I think will be key in La Liga as well, as we constantly see this 5-4-1 defensive setup in the league. 1, Xabi Alonso was not afraid to make a tactical decision during the match. As we mentioned, Tchouaméni pushed up the pitch, essentially shifting from 3 center backs to 2 center backs and having more numbers in the midfield. This opened up additional opportunities since Juventus had 0 threat up in the attack. We still had players that were able to shoot from outside the box and help generate opportunities. Fede Valverde, Tchouaméni, Arda Güler, etc. And 3, we had the players that could deliver that killer ball into the box, and we had the aerial ability. We have the killer pass in Arda Güler, in Trent Alexander-Arnold, even in Jude Bellingham, and we have players like Gonzalo Garcia, who's a traditional 9 and can kill that ball when it's in the air. Kylian Mbappé was ready to be on that pitch today, and we did see him out there for about 25 minutes. Now, personally, I was very curious to see how Kylian Mbappé would integrate himself into this squad with this tactical approach. I mean, we saw the squad function perfectly versus Salzburg with Gonzalo Garcia, and one note that I had was Gonzalo Garcia's defensive work rate was absolutely phenomenal, and so was Vini's. In this match, Vini's defensive work rate was absolutely great as well. But there's one issue that I'm seeing. It seems to me that Vini gets discouraged when he's out there pressuring and playing his defensive capabilities, and there's a player like Kylian Mbappé who's jogging on the pitch and not putting enough pressure. That's when Vini gets frustrated and he himself starts to walk. Perfect example of this was somewhere in the 70th minute when there was a play with Thuram from Juventus. He had the ball in the midfield. Vini and Kylian Mbappé did a very light jog, pretending to put pressure on Thuram. Thuram ended up getting past the two players quite easily. This, I think, is going to be a major reoccurring issue, especially depending on the biggest teams, right? You have a player like Kylian Mbappé and Vinicius Jr., who, if they don't come back defensively, you're essentially defending with 8 players on the pitch plus your goalkeeper. There's an absolute difference in being defensively positioned and also having that defensive awareness of your opponent's next move, their next pass, and what defensive movement you're going to make next. And I think this is where Kylian Mbappé and Vinicius Jr. will absolutely lack. Now, this occurred during a low block defensive structure. We see the reoccurring issue as well when we get counterattacked. The intensity at which the two strikers in Kylian Mbappé and Vinicius Jr. drop down to defend is not what this squad needs, and I think it's going to be some issue that Xabi Alonso will need to correct. Let me know in the comments below if you see Kylian Mbappé in the starting lineup in the quarterfinals. And 2, let me know if you think Xabi Alonso will come up with a solution in the defensive structure when we have Kylian Mbappé and Vinicius Jr. on that pitch